The notification for Dad's will reading livestream popped up on my phone while I was in the middle of a client meeting in Boston. I excused myself, ducked into an empty conference room, and connected just as the attorney cleared his throat and adjusted his glasses. My brother Connor's face appeared in one of the Zoom squares, his expression unreadable from his home in Seattle. As per Mr. James Harrison's final wishes, this proceeding is being recorded for transparency, the attorney began, shuffling papers in his Michigan office 3,000 miles from where I sat. Let's begin. I hadn't been able to fly back for the actual funeral 3 days earlier. A massive snowstorm had grounded all flights out of Logan, and I'd been forced to say goodbye to my father through a similar live stream, watching from my apartment as they lowered his casket into the frozen Michigan ground. Connor had been there in person, of course. Perfect Connor, who had always been Dad's favorite despite moving across the country 5 years ago. To my son, Connor Harrison, I leave my investment portfolio valued at approximately $430,000, my collection of vintage watches, and my 1967 Mustang, the attorney read. Connor nodded solemnly on screen. I wasn't surprised. Dad had always promised him the car. To my daughter, Eliza Harrison, I held my breath. I leave the sum of $250,000. That was it? I blinked, waiting for more, but the attorney had already moved on to some distant cousin. No heirlooms, no personal items, just cash, significantly less than what Connor received. I felt a hollow ache spreading through my chest. Then came the bombshell. Regarding the family home at 1425 Lakeview Drive, Traverse City, Michigan, it will be put up for auction, with proceeds to be divided equally between Connor and Eliza Harrison. Our childhood home, the sprawling Victorian on the hill overlooking Grand Traverse Bay, where we'd grown up, where Mom had died, where every significant memory of my life was stored, was going to be sold to strangers. I felt physically ill. Dad always said the house would stay in the family, I blurted out. The attorney paused. I'm afraid that's not specified in the will, Ms. Harrison. I looked at Connor's video square. His face had changed, a subtle shift I recognized from childhood. The slight narrowing of his eyes, the twitch at the corner of his mouth. He was about to do something unexpected. Actually, Connor said, his voice clear through my phone speaker, I'd like to withdraw my portion of the inheritance. Excuse me? The attorney asked. The $430,000, I'm declining it. According to Michigan law, I believe I can disclaim my inheritance, and it would then pass to the next eligible heir, which would be Eliza. I stared at the screen, stunned. What was he doing? That is correct, but, the attorney began. I've already purchased a house in Seattle, Connor continued. I don't need Dad's money, Eliza should have it. My initial surge of gratitude froze as he continued speaking. Instead, I'd like to use my own funds to purchase the family home at auction. It should stay in the family as Dad wanted. The realization hit me like a truck. Connor was positioning himself to buy our childhood home, the home where I had stayed to care for Dad during his final years while Connor built his tech career on the West Coast. The home I had assumed would one day be mine, or at least partly mine. He was using the appearance of generosity, giving me his cash inheritance to claim the one thing that mattered most to me. The attorney cleared his throat. Well, this is unusual but legal. Mr. Harrison can disclaim his cash inheritance and bid on the property when it comes up for auction next month. I ended the call in a daze, barely remembering to return to my client meeting. That night, I sat in my Boston apartment surrounded by takeout containers, staring at my bank statements. The $250,000 from Dad, plus the $430,000 Connor had generously redirected to me, gave me $680,000. A substantial sum, but was it enough to outbid my brother for our family home? Connor had done well at his tech company. Very well, from what I gathered from his occasional humble bragging during holiday calls, and now I understood why he hadn't visited much during Dad's illness. He'd been stockpiling cash for this moment. I pulled up the most recent county assessment for our home, $895,000. With the housing market in Traverse City booming due to remote workers fleeing cities, it could go for over $1 million at auction. I needed more money, Fast. The next morning, I called my boss. "I need a leave of absence," I said. "Family emergency." "Eliza, we're in the middle of the Westfield merger," she replied, concern in her voice. "I know." "I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." I paused. "Also, I need to cash out my company stock options." There was a long silence on the other end. "All of them. That's your retirement plan." "All of them," I confirmed. 3 days later, I was on a flight to Traverse City, my resignation letter submitted, my apartment sublet, and my bank account swollen with the proceeds from selling every investment I owned. I had exactly 26 days to prepare for the auction and to figure out if I was making the biggest mistake of my life. The family home looked exactly as I remembered it. 3 stories of faded blue Victorian grandeur perched on the hillside, with peeling paint around the ornate window frames and the sagging porch that Dad had always meant to fix. I'd grown up watching the seasons change across Grand Traverse Bay from those windows, the summer tourists giving way to the blazing colors of fall, then the frozen expanse of winter, and finally the gentle rebirth of spring. I stood in the driveway, key in hand. As the executor prepared the house for auction, I'd been granted access to collect personal belongings. The reality of potentially losing this place forever hit me anew as I climbed the familiar creaking steps. Inside, dust motes danced in the afternoon sunlight streaming through the bay windows. The house smelled of old books, wood polish, and faintly of Dad's pipe tobacco, a scent I thought had disappeared years ago when he quit smoking after his first heart attack. I ran my fingers along the living room mantel, where generations of family photos still stood. My throat tightened as I spotted the photo of Mom, Dad, Connor, and me at Clinch Park Beach, all smiles and sunburns from the summer I turned 10. I moved through the room slowly, cataloguing memories. The dining room where Mom had taught me to play chess, the kitchen where Dad had attempted to make Swedish pancakes every Sunday, usually burning the first batch, the window seat in the library, where I'd spent countless rainy afternoons lost in books. Upstairs, I paused at the door to my childhood bedroom. It was largely unchanged since I'd left for college. The faded blue walls, the bookshelf crammed with dog-eared paperbacks, the view of the cherry orchard next door. I sat on the bed, bouncing slightly on the familiar mattress, and tried to imagine strangers living here, some tech executive from Chicago or a wealthy family looking for a summer home. The thought made me physically ill. I was startled by the sound of the front door opening. "Hello?" A familiar voice called from downstairs. "Connor." I hadn't seen my brother in person since Christmas, nearly 7 months ago. He appeared in my bedroom doorway, looking annoyingly fit and put together in expensive jeans and a cashmere sweater, his dark hair just beginning to show touches of grey at the temples. "Hey, Lizzie," he said, using my childhood nickname as if the past 5 years of near estrangement hadn't happened. "What are you doing here?" I asked, not bothering to hide my hostility. "I thought you were in Seattle. Flew in this morning." He leaned against the doorframe, studying me. "Thought I should check out the property before the auction." "You mean your future purchase?" I said coldly. Connor had the decency to look uncomfortable. I was surprised Dad decided to put the house up for auction. I always thought he'd leave. "It to you. Clearly you didn't know him as well as you thought." I stood up, not wanting him to tower over me. "But then you weren't here, were you? For the 3 years of doctor appointments, medication schedules, and watching him fade away day by day." "Eliza, no, you were building your perfect life in Seattle while I put my career on hold to care for him. And now you think you can swoop in and take the one thing that matters to me." Connor's expression hardened. "Is that what you think I'm doing? What would you call it?" I gestured around us. "You know what this house means to me. You know I'm the one who kept it running, who took care of Dad. And now you're using your tech money to outbid me, after making a show of generously giving me your cash inheritance? That's not—" He stopped, took a deep breath. "Look, I have my reasons for wanting the house." "Which are?" He looked away. "It's complicated. Try me." "I'm getting a divorce," he said quietly. That stopped me short. "What? Since when?" "Kira filed 3 months ago. It's been messy." He ran a hand through his hair. "I needed a fresh start, somewhere away from Seattle, somewhere that felt like home." I felt a flicker of sympathy, quickly squashed by suspicion. "So, Your solution? "'Tis to take my home. It's our home, Eliza, and I'm not taking anything. I'm bidding on it fair and square. With your tech millions, while I've emptied my retirement accounts just to have a fighting chance." He had the grace to look embarrassed. "It's not like that. The divorce is costing me most of what I've saved. I'm not as flush as you think." "Right," I said, not believing him for a second. Connor had always been the family diplomat, the one who could talk his way out of anything. "So what are you suggesting? That I just give up and let you have it?" "No, He stopped, looked around the room with a wistful expression. "Remember when we used to climb out onto the roof from your window?" I did. We'd sit on the gentle slope above the porch, watching stars appear over the bay, making up stories about the lights of distant boats. Before Connor became too cool to hang out with his little sister before Mom got sick, before everything changed. "Don't," I said sharply. "Don't try to use nostalgia to manipulate me." He looked genuinely hurt. "That's not what I'm doing." "Then what are you doing here, Connor, really?" He sighed. "I'm here to propose we co-own the house." I stared at him, caught off guard. "What?" "We pool our resources for the auction. Buy it together. Share it." "After 5 years of barely speaking to each other? That's your solution?" "We're family, Lizzie, the only family either of us has left." I wanted to scoff, to dismiss the idea outright, but something stopped me. Despite everything, despite the resentment and the distance, he was right about one thing. We were all that remained of our once close family. "I'd need to think about it," I said finally. "Of course." He glanced at his watch. "I'm staying at the Grand Traverse Resort. Having dinner with Dad's old law partner tonight to discuss some of the estate details. Want to join us?" I shook my head. "I need some time. Alone." After Connor left, I wandered through the house again, this time opening closets and drawers, ostensibly to sort through belongings, but really to search for clues. Why had Dad put the house up for auction, instead of leaving it to one of us? It didn't make sense. In his study I found a wooden file box I'd never seen before. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to Connor and me. The envelopes, marked with dates spanning the last 5 years. I opened the most recent one, dated just 2 weeks before Dad died. "My dear children," it began, "if you're reading this, I've finally worn out. I've written these letters hoping to explain the choices I've made and the ones I'm asking you to make now. I spent the night reading every letter, tears streaming down my face as Dad's voice seemed to fill the room. By morning I understood everything, and I knew exactly what I had to do. The auction was held in the county courthouse, a stately limestone building in downtown Traverse City. I arrived early, heart pounding as I took a seat in the back row. The room gradually filled with interested buyers, wealthy-looking couples in resort wear, a few local real estate developers I recognized, and finally Connor, who slid into the seat beside me. "Did you consider my offer?" he asked quietly. "I did," I replied, keeping my eyes forward. "And?" "I have a counter-proposal, but not now." Before he could press further, the auctioneer called the room to order. I clutched my bidding paddle so tightly my knuckles turned white. "Today's first property is the Harrison Estate at 1425 Lakeview Drive," the auctioneer announced. "Victorian home built 1892, 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 1 acre with waterfront views. We'll start the bidding at $850,000. A paddle went up immediately, one of the developers. $850,000. "Do I hear $875,000? Another paddle. A couple I didn't recognize. $875,000. "Do I hear $900,000? Connor raised his paddle. $900,000 from number 14. "Do I hear $925,000? I raised mine. Connor glanced at me, eyebrows raised. I thought we were discussing a joint bid. "I'm still considering it," I whispered back. The price climbed steadily, $950,000, $975,000, $1 million. The developer dropped out, then the couple. Soon it was just Connor and me, driving the price higher and higher. $200,000 from number 14, the auctioneer called. "Do I hear $1,225,000? Hesitated. I had liquidated everything I owned to amass $1.2 million. One more bid would put me over my limit. Connor was watching me closely. "Lizzie," he whispered, "this is crazy. We're just driving up the price for ourselves." "Funded $225,000, the auctioneer prompted again. I took a deep breath and raised my paddle. $1,225,000 from number 22. Do I hear $250,000? Connor looked genuinely distressed now. "Eliza, please, let's stop this." "Then drop out," I hissed. "I can't," he said and raised his paddle. $250,000 from number 14. Do I hear $275,000? This was it. I was at my absolute limit. If I bid again, I wouldn't have enough to cover it. But Connor didn't know that. I raised my paddle one last time. $275,000 from number 22. Do I hear $300,000? Connor stared at me, conflict evident on his face. Then, slowly, he lowered his eyes and shook his head. $275,000 going once, going twice. Sold to bidder number 22. A wave of dizzying relief washed over me. I'd done it. I'd secured our family home. But the victory felt hollow as I watched Connor's shoulders slump in defeat. Outside the courthouse, Connor caught up with me as I was signing the final paperwork. "Congratulations," he said stiffly. "You got what you wanted." "Not exactly," I replied, finishing my signature with a flourish. "We need to talk." We walked to a nearby coffee shop, the same one where we'd spent countless Saturday mornings as teenagers. Once we were settled with our drinks, black coffee. For him, chai latte for me. Some habits never change. I pulled out Dad's wooden file box. "Found this in his study," I said, sliding it across the table. "Letters, one for each month of the last 5 years." Connor opened the box cautiously. He wrote to us. Letters he never sent. About his illness, his regrets, his hopes for us. I took a sip of my chai. "Did you know he was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's 5 years ago?" Connor's head snapped. "So I see what? No, he told me it was just high blood pressure, maybe early heart disease." He lied to both of us. He didn't want you to put your career on hold, and he didn't want me to stay out of guilt. I traced the rim of my mug. But I figured it out about 3 years ago when I moved back to help him. By then he made me promise not to tell you. Why would he? Because he knew you'd come back, give up everything you'd built. I met Connor's eyes. He was proud of you. Prouder than he ever admitted to your face. Connor stared at the letters, his expression unreadable. "So why the auction? Why not just leave the house to you? You were the one who took care of him." "Read the last letter." I said. He pulled out the final envelope and read silently. I already knew what it said, having memorized the key passage. "I'm putting the house up for auction because I want you both to decide how much it truly means to you. Not out of obligation to me, not out of rivalry with each other, but because it's where our family lived and loved. Whatever happens at that auction will tell you both what you need to know about yourselves and each other." Connor looked up, eyes glistening. He was testing us. In his own twisted way, yes. I smiled faintly. Classic Dad, right? A lesson wrapped in a riddle. "So what now? You won. The house is yours." I slid another document across the table. The deed I'd just signed. "Actually, it's ours." Connor stared at the paper. "What?" I put it in both our names. Joint ownership. I took a deep breath. "I outbid you because I needed to know if you really wanted it, if you were willing to fight for it, and you were. But why give me half after all that? Because Dad was right. The house isn't just about the building or the location. It's about family. Our family." I met his eyes. And maybe it's time we remembered what that means. Connor was quiet for a long moment, studying the deed. "I can't believe you did this. After everything, I'm not saying it fixes everything between us. We have 5 years of distance to overcome, not to mention my resentment and your guilt." I smiled wryly. "But it's a start." "A start," he echoed, then looked up with the ghost of his old smile. "So what's your proposal?" "I live there full-time. You use it when you visit or need a break from Seattle. We split the taxes and maintenance. And maybe," I hesitated, "maybe we both try to be the siblings we used to be, before everything fell apart." Connor extended his hand across the table. Deal. As we shook on it, I felt something shift between us, not a complete healing of old wounds, but the beginning of a bridge across the chasm that had grown over the years. That evening we walked through our childhood home together, sharing memories and tentative plans for the future. In Dad's study, Connor paused by the window overlooking the bay. "You know," he said quietly, "I withdrew my inheritance because I thought it would make bidding on the house simpler, cleaner. I never imagined you'd empty your accounts to fight me for it. I never imagined you'd want it this badly," I admitted. "I thought you were just being Nate Connor, taking what you wanted because you could." He turned to face me. "I'm sorry I wasn't here. For Dad. For you. I'm sorry I shut you out when you tried to help from a distance." The setting sun cast long shadows across the room, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. The same air our family had breathed for generations. "So," Connor said, "what's first on the renovation list?" I smiled. "The porch. Dad always wanted to fix that sagging corner." "The porch it is," he agreed. "We'll start tomorrow." As darkness fell over Grand Traverse Bay, we sat on the porch steps, passing a bottle of Dad's favorite whiskey between us, making plans for the home that had finally brought us back together, the home I had fought for, the home we would now share, not as rivals but as family, just as Dad had intended all along.